Want to make your sitcom script funnier? Start in the middle. Hello, I'm James Carey. I've been writing sitcom scripts for the BBC for over 20 years. This is the Situation Room, and I'm all about helping you write better sitcom scripts. And last time, I wrote about the importance of starting your sitcom in the middle, in particular starting the plot of your pilot script. But it doesn't just apply to episodes, stories, and plots. Starting in the middle can also apply to scenes. Now, I've just read hundreds and hundreds of scripts, and here's something that people are doing a lot. They're writing scenes that are too long. They're often 2 pages too long. And sometimes that first scene is 7 or 8 pages long, and it really doesn't need to be. In fact, it probably shouldn't be. Why is the scene so long and ponderous and needs cutting? Because our instinct is always to start a scene at the beginning. Start in the middle. Do we need to see the beginning of the scene, especially if it's like a meeting? Probably not. Do we need to see someone enter a room, sit down, pour coffee and ask how everybody is? No, because it's boring. It's generic. Get on with it. Start in the middle of the meeting when it started to get interesting. See, what we might then do is if we're writing a sitcom and we start from the beginning, to cover up the fact that it's boring, we cover it with jokes. Maybe something about the brand of coffee, why Peter might be running late, what happened in the last meeting when Bryony got high on the whiteboard markers and passed out. Now, what you've done, and I do this too, is you've created 2 pages which are now redundant. So it feels too funny to cut, even though you don't actually need them at all. Start in the middle. Start in the middle of the meeting, not the beginning. Let's get back to Deborah, who is, say, having to give honest feedback to her boss, Clem, who is terrible at her job and only in it for the foreign travel. We don't need Deborah edging nervously into the office, talking about the weather, wondering about how to broach the fact that her boss is only interested in travelling. It's probably going to be quite static, quite stilted and quite eggy. Let's just cut the beginning of that scene and cut into the fact that you got Clem unrolling this huge map on the boardroom table and pointing out to all of the countries that she's not visited yet and how she's going to wangle trips and conferences so that she can tick those places off her list. So that's just an example of how we can just cut to the middle. And there are 30 different ways of doing that with that particular setup. But let's get out of the office, because offices are a bit boring, and get over to Honest John's car repair shop for another illustration. Okay, so Honest John's is a sitcom that I've literally just made up about an honest car repair guy called John who is honest. I haven't really thought it through, but that doesn't really matter for this example. It's not John's first day. Phew, he's worked there for years. It's probably his place. He's there along with his assistant, Ryan. And here's the temptation. You start your script at the beginning of the day with the shutters going up and they're putting the kettle on. And then Ryan turns up and last night's TV is discussed and maybe they're talking about some cop show about organised crime. Okay, we're on to page 3 or 4 by now. And then they run through who's booked in for the day, discussing characters and clients that we can't see, which is kind of boring and frustrating. So that's the beginning of the day done. 3 pages at least wasted already. We're going to waste 5 more. Here's how. Time for the story or the customer of the week. A car is brought in and the owner explains the problem with the transmission or the gearbox. Again, we tell that story from the beginning, pages 4 to 6. Honest John makes a start getting to work. He puts it up on that thing that makes it go up and down and starts looking underneath. And then on page 9, he discovers a black plastic bag gaffer taped to the undercarriage of the car. Ooh, intriguing. But that's the first thing that's happened that's interesting in the script, and it's already page 9, because everything else is something that's happening to John. In fact, this has happened to John. We don't even know what's in the bag. This is when he's going to have to start to make a choice. So the package is then taken into the office and opened up, and it contains, say, £6,000 in used £50 notes. Well, that's quite a lot of money. Where's it from? It's quite a juicy moment, isn't it? I'm quite pleased I've come up with it, to be honest. Does John pretend he hasn't seen it? Does he put it back? Does he call the police? Does he talk to the owner of the car who brought it in? Does his colleague see? Can they be trusted? Are they going to help themselves to the money? Whatever it is, he's not actually making a decision until page 13. And that means you've only got 17 pages left to actually have a proper story where your character is being active and making choices. And we've got to that situation because we've just started everything from the beginning. Start in the middle. Again, in the past few months, I've read literally hundreds of scripts that make this mistake. You can improve your script dramatically by starting scenes in the middle. So how about this? Page 1 and 2, John is in the middle of working on the car. In fact, he's telling Ryan that he's fixed it. He's pretty much all done. But what's this? He puts his hand down the side of the engine or something and pulls out a black bag that's been gaffer taped to the side of it. The bag is now torn, bits of paper flutter everywhere. Ryan holds one up. It's a £50 note. And there are loads of them. Okay, that's page 2. Page 3, the notes have been gathered up. They've been counted. £6,000. What's it doing there? Who brought the car in? John wasn't there. Ryan explains that the owner who came in actually looked a bit dodgy. Looked a bit like the guy who we saw on TV last night on this cop show, which actually, come to think of it, was not real. Therefore, the guy was an actor. So that shouldn't matter. But we're off. It's page 3 because we started in the middle. And this second version is way better than the first. Or at least we've got loads more time for the plot to escalate. And John is forced into more situations where he has to make decisions. Here's the lesson. Start in the middle. That's when it gets interesting. And that's when it gets funny. We're not interested in the bits that aren't interesting. Stop trying to make the uninteresting bits interesting by sweating over jokes. Just cut them. This is just one of the problems I encounter when I read Pilot Sitcom Scripts. I've put all 14 of them into a PDF that you can get right now with some clear action points along with pages and pages of other bits of advice and a free 90-minute video and audio. So click the link below to get hold of that or watch this video to find out more. With sitcoms, the middle is important, but in the next video, we're going to look at one of the problems of starting in the middle. So look out for that. Why don't you subscribe?